I'm a spaz!
Well, that was pretty clear, wasn't it, guys? That tiny, tiny little bit there is an excerpt from Lizzo's latest single, GRRRLS. You probably guessed by the tone of my voice it's not my kind of music. It really isn't my kind of music. But I'm not here to talk about whether I like it or don't, because that doesn't matter. The fact is, Lizzo's found herself in some hot water because of using that particular word in her song.
I'm a spaz!
Now, the word in question, of course, is spaz, and I haven't heard this word for a very long time, I've got to say. But according to Lizzo's people, she was referring to that word in the sense of about to go to a party and let her hair down and party until she can't party anymore, and that's what she means by that. But it is, it's an ableist term, and I'm surprised, very surprised, that no one during the recording session, during uploading, thought, okay, we probably shouldn't use that word. I remember when this word was commonly used. When I was at school, it was a very commonly used term. Now, some of you who watch my videos seem to think I'm much older than I actually am. You think I'm a really old guy. And maybe it's just the fact that I've lived a certain life, my face looks old and haggard, and you must think I'm really old. But when I was at school in the 1950s, and yes, I'm being facetious, I was not at school in the 1950s. I was at school much more recently than that, but never mind, because no one's going to believe it, they don't care. But when I was at school, it was a term that was used. Spaz was short for spastic, and it was used to describe and insult a friend or someone else at school who was acting a certain way. And they were being compared to someone who had some sort of disability that affected them in a certain way. And it was offensive. It was a really offensive word to use, but it was very, very common. So I'm not surprised people are getting upset about this, because I've never seen it used in a good way. And I have to say, when we were at school, we would use it, and when I actually started to meet children who had disabilities, I realised that it was wrong to ever use these words. And I met those children who had disabilities when I was a child also, so I'm not saying I waited until I was an adult. But when I met children who had certain disabilities, when I would meet children who had, unfortunate disabilities where they would struggle to control their limbs or struggle to control, the way they would move their body and all that kind of stuff, I really did feel like it's terrible to use this kind of terminology, because they are people who are, firstly, human beings. Secondly, they have a life to live and a contribution to make to society. And thirdly, they have to overcome amazing odds. They have to overcome things that if you're not in any way affected by any sort of disability, you will never know what people have to overcome in order to succeed in life if they have a disability. So I've certainly stopped using it. I don't know anyone who uses it now, and if someone did use it, I would say, don't say that, that's terrible. Because, it's just not good. And I'm surprised that it slipped through the net, and I think it wouldn't be too much of an ask for Lizzo to go back into the studio and replace that one word. Because these days, music is different. It's not like they've printed loads of CDs of the single. These days it doesn't work that way. So they just go back, they re-record it, and they re-upload it. It's just that simple. If they printed loads of copies of it, fine, I understand why that's difficult. You can't, bring back all the copies and destroy them. That's a huge expense. And I understand why a record company might not want to do that. But these days you just re-record it, upload it, you've got to replace one word only with something else, and I'm sure they could easily do that. But that's what's going on. I think I focused on this for way too long, guys. I'm so sorry. I've just been talking. Thanks for watching, especially if you're actually watching to the end.